business continuity, I obviously talked about a while ago. Okay, just to show you that this isn't something that's absolutely bleeding edge, as we say in our industry. A lot of organisations have already adopted this. This is not, right at the cutting edge. Okay, a good percentage of international call trunking corporate phone systems are already using VoIP. It's something the big guys have been doing for some time. Just a few figures. Over half of large 500-plus organisations within the UK are now using IP telephony. There's some of the sources for these surveys at the bottom. An additional 27% of UK businesses are expecting to implement VoIP within the next 3 years. Okay? A quarter of all fixed phone lines across Europe are now used for VoIP telephony. Okay? VoIP's expected to reach 74% of all businesses by 2012. It's a bandwagon, it's rolling, okay? It's something sooner or later you're going to get on, okay? Okay, the different ways a business can tap into VoIP. I've sort of simplified this and put these into 3 categories. You can use the free online services such as Skype and its competitors, okay? I'm not going to get into a big debate about Skype. Generally, the perception of Skype and its quality is deemed as being not business grade. If you start having to use Skype within your business, all that stuff I said about perception, you may be in a spot of bother. You can use subscription-based services. There's hundreds of these websites. If you Google VoIP, you will see them all over on the AdWords at the top. And these guys charge you a monthly fee per extension, and they run the VoIP system for you. Or you can go and implement your own VoIP PBX. Okay? Now, traditionally, this was a very expensive option. You needed to go and buy a PBX, buy a phone system from somebody like Mitel or Avaya or one of these manufacturers, and they were pretty expensive pieces of kit. They were major capital investments in your business. I know I've bought about 4 over the years, and they cost a lot of money. Okay. Carrying on, just a bit more explanation. What I'm going to do now is just look at the differences between the modern PBXs that are available and the traditional PBXs. Just flicking through quickly. A traditional office phone system. Can you hear me if I come over here? No. Okay. A traditional office phone system has what we call a proprietary phone switch. It has one of these bits of kit from somebody like Avaya or Mitel sat in the middle. They're expensive, okay? They cost a lot of money. They're traditionally connected via ISDN to the outside world or analog BT lines. They're expensive. They cost a lot of money. If you call remote workers, teleworkers at home, obviously you're going out via the BT network, and you're paying call charges for that. People who are roaming with mobile devices, again, obviously you're paying call charges. If you have another office location, you're going out via the traditional telephony network, and again, you're paying call charges for that. And finally, one of the key things in terms of cost with a traditional phone system, generally you get hardwired into a telephone provider in terms of you're buying your minutes from them. Okay? They always start you off on a very good cheap deal, and then over the years, because you don't really check the bills properly, it creeps up, and you find it's not as competitive as that offer you had at the beginning. So there's no choice generally. You're buying your minutes from BT or whoever your telco is. A VoIP-based system, on the other hand, is a slightly different configuration. First of all, your VoIP phone system is normally, these days, not a proprietary piece of kit. It can be a software-based system, which means if you already have server infrastructure in your business, you already have servers for your IT, you can exploit that to run your telephony. If you were implementing one of these from scratch, in other words, you didn't have any IT infrastructure and you needed to get servers, still like for like, to implement a software-based PBX is typically 70% cheaper than a hardware-based PBX. One of the other advantages of these more modern phone systems is you don't have to have an old-fashioned desk phone. Okay? I like a desk phone personally. Some people aren't that bothered. You can have a soft phone on your PC. Okay? All our guys on our service desk for years, they've used these because they're on the phone all the time. So rather than plugging these into a handset, Now they just plug them straight into the PC, and they have a software-based phone where they can dial straight from their PC. Okay? As a business owner, the advantage of that for me, they don't cost anything. Okay? Instead of a handset which can cost £70, £100. When my guys are working at home, it used to be I used to have to call them on their home number or their mobile. But now we use a VoIP-based system. They can log into that phone system remotely, obviously using their broadband from home, using either a soft phone or a desk phone, and they are connected to my office phone system. Okay? So I'm not having to divert to their mobile or their home number. They are sat at home working as if they're in the office, and I put calls through to their extension, and they can call me from their extension. Okay? Roaming users. A good percentage of our guys spend a considerable amount of time on client sites, so working at a location. And they can actually get a soft phone which goes on top of their existing smartphone. Okay? Which is a bit of a strange concept. So I could use my iPhone, well I am right now, connected to the office phone system, and I'm actually using the wireless from this building to tap into my office phone system. Which means the office needs to call me, it's not costing them a penny, for them to reach my mobile. I'm not actually using the O2 network. If you have branch offices, you have different offices or sister companies, okay, you can bridge the VoIP between those locations, and again, those calls are going to be free. Okay? Sooner or later, you're going to have to connect to the old-fashioned telephone network. Okay? You're going to have to dial somebody on an 0207 number or an international number that your VoIP system just won't support. You do that, as I said earlier, using a thing called a SIP trunk. The advantage is there's a lot of competition in this area, and you can choose what providers you use. So we work with, for example, an international hotel chain, and they make a lot of calls to Australia, Germany, and Austria. And we've managed, through choosing different SIP trunk providers, to route their calls different ways, depending on which office they're calling. And we've basically achieved calls to Australia for near local rate calls. Okay. If you want to implement one of these PBXs, how do you go about doing it? Okay. First of all, my advice, do not go out and buy a hardware PBX from Cisco, Mitel, Avaya, all of those guys. Very good systems, but they are phenomenally expensive. Go for a software-based PBX. We work with a couple of different pieces of software. Our preferred offering is a technology called 3CX. You can Google them if you literally just Google the letters 3CX. That lets you leverage your existing IT infrastructure, so you can exploit your existing infrastructure. Okay? They are completely feature-rich out of the box. I remember I nearly fell off my chair. This is going back about 8 years ago. We bought a very expensive phone system for a client, and then the client said a few months later that they wanted voicemail. We had to go and spend, it's been quite a big organisation, another £10,000 with the provider to get the modules in which enabled voicemail. Okay? These systems, such as 3CX, come with all of the features out of their box. They're pieces of software that run on servers. Allows the use of soft phones. I think I've already laboured that point enough. And no smoke and mirrors. These things are incredibly easy to manage. Okay? Cisco engineers, Mitel engineers are even more techie than my guys. They tend to live in their own little world, and the traditional phone systems are very, very difficult to manage. These modern software-based systems are incredibly intuitive to manage. Choose a good implementation partner. I mean, I will say that because we are one. It's something, in theory, you could do yourself, as with anything IT, but I would obviously encourage you to speak to somebody who does it for a living and does it professionally to avoid the pitfalls. I say avoid the subscription-based services. I've looked at these in length, and I have some of my customers use these services. The issue with them is they're a pay-per-extension service, they're a pay-per-feature service, and quite quickly the costs start to get pretty expensive. That's the business model of these guys. Okay? The other issue is around quality. A lot of these guys are just selling these services as quickly as they can. They're not really looking at it as a complete telephony solution for their customers. All they're interested in is the monthly fee. And we've had quite a few people who have been bitten by just being talked into these things without it being properly considered. Okay, in terms of features you can expect, I'm not going to go into a huge list. But all of the things I talked about earlier that traditionally only large enterprise organisations